Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 32. In 2018, two daycare workers were charged after a video surfaced of them running an underground toddler fight club. The women instructed at least 6 children to have full-on fistfights. The most isolated place on the planet is a little dot in the Pacific Ocean called Point Nemo. It's the furthest spot from any kind of land, and the closest civilization is 1,000 miles away. In 2019, filmmakers hired 3 young-looking actresses to pose as 12-year-old girls for a documentary about online predators. Over the next 10 days, they received a combined 2,458 messages from sexual predators. Sarcasm is actually illegal in North Korea. In 2007, a woman died after drinking a little over a gallon of water in 3 hours. And she did it in order to win a Wii.
This pregnant woman was murdered and cut open by her friend. On October 9th, 2020, 29-year-old Taylor Parker was pulled over for speeding as she made her way home in Texas. Police noticed that there was a newborn baby in the passenger seat of her car, and when asked, Taylor said that she had just given birth. The officer quickly responded and got Taylor and the newborn baby medical attention, but when Taylor arrived to the hospital, she refused to get checked and the baby was pronounced dead. Not long after, police were called to 21-year-old Regan Hancock's home, where she was face down and deceased. Regan's mother actually found her with her skull crushed, she was stabbed 100 times, and the most disturbing part was that her stomach was cut open and her baby was gone. After investigating, police arrested Taylor Parker for this heinous crime. Investigators later realized that Taylor and Regan were friends, and Taylor was very involved in Regan's pregnancy, even to the point that she photographed her maternity shoot. Taylor also faked her pregnancy for 9 months. She threw a gender reveal for her fake baby. She faked her due date, and she found out when Regan's due date was, and she made sure to murder her on that same day. It's been said that her motive was to save her relationship with her boyfriend by having a child, and since she couldn't have any more kids, she murdered her friend and tried to take her baby and pretend like it's hers. Taylor was sentenced to death and is now at the state prison in Gatesville, Texas.
A farmer's pig gave birth to this human baby, but when doctors scan its DNA, they immediately call the police. On a small farm located deep in the Cambodian forest.
10 quick fire facts you didn't know that could save your life one day. So sit down, shut up, and listen. Trust me, favorite this video so you can come back to it at any point if you need it. When a dog wags its tail, it doesn't always mean that it's being friendly. It can actually mean the opposite. Never mix bleach and ammonia because this can make a poisonous gas. If you're ever sinking in quicksand, lie down face up. This will disperse your weight, stopping you from sinking. If you're in a crowded space, make a mental note of all the exits. If a service dog ever comes up to you without its owner, follow them immediately. You could save someone's life. If you're about to get run over by a vehicle, jump and try and swoop yourself up onto the hood rather than fall into the ground. If your airplane crashes into water, do not inflate your life jacket until you are outside of the plane, because if the plane starts to fill up with water, you'll get trapped inside and won't be able to get out. When you're booking a ticket for a flight, book a middle seat in the back of the plane. If an alligator grabs you, good luck! No, I'm kidding. Shove your fingers in its nose. This breaks its airway seal, allowing water to flush in, and it has to let you go. Now send this to literally anyone, because you could save their life one day. Yo, him! On!
This man sexually abused and murdered a 9-month-old baby so badly that America went out of their way to sign a petition so the government can publicly hang him. If you are easily triggered by really gruesome crimes, especially with children, then please take this as your warning. This is a super disturbing case. Get a number on me, and I typically always listen to crime videos. Back in 2016, 33-year-old Benjamin Taylor, remember that name, moved in with his girlfriend Amanda Atkins to West Virginia. Now, Amanda had recently had a baby. Her name was Emily. She was a very happy, lovable baby. She was only 9 months old at the time. Within 1 month of moving in with this man, oh my God, I can't just listen. So it's around 4 a.m. and Amanda had woken up to, probably the bathroom, check on her baby. So when she goes to the crib to check on Emily, she looks aside and Emily is not in her crib. She is a 9-month-old baby. She is not just going to up and walk off. Amanda's mommy instincts kicked in like this. She knew that Benjamin was just gonna come and take her baby. He had just moved in. So she's running around the house looking everywhere for Emily now. She ends up in the basement. When Amanda took that last step going down towards the basement, all she saw was Benjamin.
75 passengers lost their lives after this pilot let his children in the cockpit. On March 23rd, 1994, an Aeroflot aircraft was flying from Russia to Hong Kong when the airplane tragically crashed. Only a few hours into the flight, one of the pilots allowed his 2 children who were also on the flight to enter the cockpit so that they can see how everything operated. The pilot's 16-year-old son Elder and his 12-year-old daughter Yana had the opportunity to sit in the pilot's seat and play around with the aircraft's controls. Of course, autopilot was on, so this was not supposed to be dangerous. Well, at least that's what he thought. The pilot told his son Elder that he can turn the plane to one side so he can experience what it was to fly a plane. Unfortunately, this disabled autopilot. The pilots were unaware that the plane began turning, but once they noticed, the plane had steepened to almost 90 degrees. The plane started to quickly descend while the pilots tried to figure out what was wrong. And there's actually an audio recording of how everything played out, and you can hear the fear in these pilots' voices. The plane ended up crashing on a mountain in Russia, killing all 75 passengers on board. After investigating, they said that the cause of the crash were the children who were playing with the controls in the aircraft. And it was said that if the pilots had left the controls alone rather than trying to fix them manually, the plane would have corrected itself.
People are saying your favorite celebrities are hanging out with a witch. As you can see, this woman is pretty friendly with a lot of celebrities. A$AP Rocky, Kim Kardashian, Kanye, even the Migos. But why are they so deeply connected with this woman? Her name is Michelle Lemmy, and it says she's a fashion designer, film producer, etc. But she's also married to Rick Owens, who is known as the Dark Lord of fashion. Look, here she is even wearing his head as a purse. Oh, and she's very close to Marina Abramovich, whose art is a little demonic. I mean, she once threw a party with a human-shaped cake. I kid you not. Look at this. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this just a connection for fashion, or is there something more darker going on? And make sure you guys hit that follow button, because my next video will blow your mind.
How rare is your body compared to the rest of the world? Favorite and comment on this video if you have any of these. First up, only 4% of people have Raynaud's syndrome. This is when part of your body, typically your fingers and toes, start to turn white when they're exposed to low temperatures. Only 16% of people can make a roaring sound in their head using their jaw. Now you can do this because you can control a small muscle in your jaw. Only 35% of people globally have 20/20 vision. That means 2/3 of the population cannot see perfectly. 10% of people are left-handed. As well, studies show these people typically live shorter lives. Only 5% of people globally have tongues that are tied. This is when your tongue is tied to the bottom of your mouth and typically will impact speech and eating. And probably the wildest one of all, only 11% of people in the world have brown hair. Yo, Elon!
And what you're looking at here is the greatest gift the Hmong people have given us, other than Sunny Lee. This is the Hmong dog, or the Hmong bobtail dog, or as I call him, the meow wolf. Because if the question is cat or dog and you can't commit, a puppy cat might be in your future. The pride of the Hmong people of Southeast Asia was forged in the mountains of Vietnam, likely while the Hmong pieced out of China for reasons. Some say this dog was a result of Chinese bobtails getting nasty with Vietnam jackals, and the resulting Hmong dog was used for hunting and guarding. Now you might ask what this cat dog could possibly guard you from other than low dopamine. Well, they're a lot tougher than you think, and they've been used by Vietnamese police as sniffing dogs, so if you try to bring some BS into their borders, you will have to see a professional snitch about it. Another thing is that their hunting history means they do not rock with cats, and yeah, that just sounds like a dog thing, but their prey drive means a cat can breathe, and a Hmong pup will take it personally. It'll go from cat to casualty real fast, and for a dog that looks feline in the face, that's probably why they're on site. They clock the fake, and one thing they don't tolerate is an imposter among us. But obviously, if you socialize them and know what you're getting into, they can be a great addition to your house. You might even get a Zui. Zui is a Hmong dog that went viral for... well, I mean, how could this raccoon corgi not? Also, correct me if I'm wrong, I just might be, but apparently his name means raccoon. God bless this benevolent loaf of bread. And shout out to the Hmong people for baking him, the more you know.
Listen to this crazy history that you didn't learn in school. A serial killer in New Orleans stated that he would kill again, but would spare the occupants of any place where a jazz band was playing. On that night, all the clubs reached capacity. Amateur bands played jazz music at hundreds of different house parties, and there were no murders. I think this guy was probably a big fan of jazz and just knew what he was doing to get more of it, I guess. From the year 1264 to 1827, anyone who received a Master of Arts degree from Oxford had to swear that they would never forgive Henry Simonis. But by 1608, no one knew who he was or what he had done. Before his acting career, Christopher Walken worked as a lion tamer in a circus at the age of 16 years old. He later said that he took that job because it was just too unique to pass up. The most significant temperature change in 24 hours happened in Loma, Montana in 1972, when the temperature rose by 103 degrees from negative 54 Fahrenheit to 49 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a 1950s ad for new homes with a pool costing $9,800. When you adjust that for inflation, it would only be about $118,000 today.
Urban legends caught
Things humans were never meant to see. Okay, first, this is how much pollen is actually in a tree. I can feel a sneeze coming on just watching that video. Bet you didn't know that beluga whales actually has knees. I'm pretty sure this is how the myth of the mermaid started. Don't quote me on that. Okay, we've all seen an alligator outside of the water, right? Well, this is what it looks like under the water. Who would have known? But honestly, it makes it seem a little less unscary. Okay, now everyone remembers the Teletubbies, right? And no, not your ugly neighbor next door. Not her. Well, this is what it looks like without having their heads on. Finally, this is how an octopus walks on land. This is genuinely horrifying. Never show me that again. Things that only exist in Japan. First, these are square watermelons. They're expensive and shaped by special equipment on farms. There's plenty of unique Kit Kat flavors in Japan. From chili, wasabi, roasted corn, sweet potato, soy, watermelon, and a bunch more. Buildings will often have parking for umbrellas. You know, just like they do for bikes. Traffic lights will actually turn blue instead of green. There's a restaurant chain for canned food, and some places just won't have the number 4. I don't know why. Like buildings will skip the 4th floor and just go straight to 5. Or items just won't be sold in packs of 4. They actually have really cool high-tech toilets. Some functions include playing music and warm water and also heated seats. I need that. Automatic doors are a common feature in cabs. Oh, and also capsule hotels. They're just rooms that just have a bed and TV. Would you stay there?
His life was taken after accidentally entering the wrong home. On August 26th of this year, just before 2 a.m., officers were sent to a home on South Holly Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Those officers were called for a suspected home burglary. As officers were responding, the emergency call was then upgraded to a shots fired call. The officers found a victim on the front porch deceased with a gunshot wound to his upper body. The victim was identified as 20-year-old Nicholas Anthony Donofrio. Nicholas actually lived on the same street where the shooting happened, and he just accidentally entered the wrong home when he was shot. The police said that the shooter was a man who lived at the home, but they were not going to release his name since he was not going to be charged in this case. Nicholas had graduated high school in 2021 in Madison, Connecticut. The shooting came in less than 72 hours after the university's fall semester classes had just begun.
These two insane parents held their 13 kids captive for years. David and Louise Turpin lived with their 13 kids in the Texas suburbs. They registered their house as a school so they could teach their kids from home, but other than that, they seemed like a normal family from the outside. The kids were seen playing in their front yard all the time and even played with the neighbors from across the street. But the neighbors began noticing some strange behaviors, like the kids marching in a circle at night and digging through the neighbor's trash. One night, the neighbor found the Turpins' oldest daughter running down the street frantically as if she was trying to escape something. So the neighbors picked her up and drove her back to her house, assuming she was mentally unstable due to her weird behavior and her dirty appearance. After that, the parents decided to move to this house in Oceanside, California. But only a week later, police received a phone call from a 17-year-old saying she had just escaped her house and that her siblings were still being held captive. Within minutes, police arrived at the house, but you won't believe what they found inside.
Stop scrolling because this has to be one of the scariest ghost stories ever. Just last month, a man died after claiming that a ghost was trying to kill him.
The man was a Russian tourist staying in Thailand, and he reportedly fell to his death from the 9th floor of a condo. According to reports, he had approached a security guard on May 22nd, and what he told them was terrifying. He told them that he was being hunted by a murderous ghost with bulging eyes. After running all over the building, he ended up falling to his death from the 9th floor window. The guard later stated that the man was completely out of it. He kept saying that the ghost with bulging eyes was chasing him and trying to kill him. The guard said that he was terrified and running up and down the building like a madman. Another resident of the building claimed to have heard his screams just before the fall. They said that he was yelling in an awful voice, and that it was like something out of a horror film. The witness said that until the incident, the Russian tourist seemed completely normal. The police said that they found no evidence of an altercation or break-in, and it appeared that the victim was hallucinating and jumped voluntarily.
Ionized Yeast presents Light Out. Everybody.
SeaWorld just got caught hiding a real mermaid. If you didn't know, there was rumors that SeaWorld was hiding a lab underground that had mermaids and an actual megalodon. And someone found something terrifying. So this man, David Seinfeld, decided to go sneaking around SeaWorld and see if he could actually find anything under the orca show tank, where the employees' area is. So that's where he looked. 30 minutes after looking in the area, he found a door that said employees only. When walking through it, he only came across a hallway. You know, the ones with the huge tanks over your head and the sharks and stingrays swim over? Nothing out of the ordinary, right? But then he got to a metal door. The sign said classified, no employees allowed. So of course he decides to go through it. He claims that there was a huge lab with 2 mermaids in it, swimming in what looked like a giant indoor tank. Now it didn't look like a normal mermaid. It had blubbery skin almost like a dolphin, webbed fingers, and these gill-like holes in its neck. And of course he took pictures and videos of it. If you want to see the footage, you can't, because this is just one big creepypasta. Send this to a friend if you want to prank them.
What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Corzilius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Corzilius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident.
Welcome back to Female Murderer TikTok. This one's about Nanny Doss. Buckle up. Nanny and her husband had 4 kids. 2 of them died back-to-back from poisonings. The husband was like, something ain't right, and then he took the kids and left. So Nanny gets remarried, kills him, buys a house and land with the insurance money, and is like, oh, I like this. She reunites with her daughter. Her daughter's like, hey, can you watch my baby for a little bit? And she's like, totally. And then the baby dies in like 3 days. And then it starts to get lethal. She marries her 3rd husband. He dies that year. Her mom breaks her hip and she's like, I'll take care of you. She's dead. Both of her sisters die in the same year in different towns, all while Nanny's visiting. She marries her 4th husband. He doesn't even make it a few months. Then she marries her 5th husband. He dies a month later. But finally, in that autopsy, they were like, there's a lot of rat poison in this guy. Did you do this? And then Nanny goes, yeah, I did that to all of them. So she gets life in prison, and before she dies, they interview her, and they're like, why did you do it? Was it for the money? And she goes, money? I was bored.
They built a guillotine in their shrine. On April 15th of 2023, the Makwana family stood outside a small shack in their village in India. Heimu and Hansa brought their children ages 12 and 13 to have a sleepover with their uncle and cousins. The children rushed inside to greet their relatives, and Heimu and Hansa reminded them to be good, and everyone just seemed happy. The uncle reassured the parents that the children would be fine and they would have a great night. They thanked him, turned around, and walked hand in hand down the dirt road that would lead them home. As they were walking hand in hand, they were feeling grateful for the family that they had, and Hansa was wearing a deep red dress while Heimu was wearing a white button-down shirt, something that they wouldn't wear very often. Their home was described as a simple brick and concrete structure, but instead of going inside, they went towards the back of their home where a handmade tent was. And this tent wasn't a shelter, it was a sacred ground. Inside of that tent, they had a personal shrine to the Hindu god Shiva, Lord of Destruction and Rebirth. This space was for prayers and offerings. But over the past couple of days, the couple had been constructing something new inside. It resembled a door frame without a door, and it had a long white rope. No one knew this yet, but it was a guillotine. Later that night, the couple went inside of that tent and decided to work quickly. They built a fire in the center of the shrine and scattered orange flower petals around Shiva. Next, Heimu took a pen and started to write a letter, and him and his wife put their thumbprints at the bottom as a signature. They folded the note and placed it carefully between the Shiva image and statue. Together they knelt by the guillotine and recited a prayer. They both placed their head in this guillotine, grabbed the rope, and released it. Following morning, the children returned home calling for their parents, but they never got a reply. They checked the home, nothing. They checked the fields, nothing. And then they thought maybe they're in the shrine. When they peeked inside the shrine, they saw 2 headless bodies, their mother and father. The children were freaking out, fled, and contacted the police. Once police arrived to the tent, they saw the 2 headless bodies and a note that said, "This was our choice, we wanted this, please take care of our children and our elderly parents." Although they left this note behind, there was no clear explanation on why they did this. The parents weren't struggling, they weren't in debt, they were a happy family with their children, so they couldn't figure out why they would want to do this. Police started to believe that this may have been an act of black magic. There are no charges to file, no suspects to pursue, just 2 children remembering their parents the last time they saw them, happy, loving, and in their finest clothes.
Every single holiday that we celebrate is celebrating one of the 7 deadly sins. Valentine's Day represents lust. Thanksgiving that celebrates the sin of
Gluttony, yeah, because you're
because
eating.
you're eating a lot.
Mhm.
You're overeating. Christmas, what do you think that is?
Christmas. Greed?
Greed,
Yeah.
overconsumption, and excess.
Oh.
Celebrating gifts. We're not really even celebrating like the birth of Christ because people are so focused on the gifts and shit. The holiday of Easter, what sin would it be?
Easter.
Say it's envy because the Romans were jealous of Jesus, so they murdered him.
Oh.
It's crazy. St. Patrick's Day, it's sloth because
Why?
people get blacked out drunk.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Now Halloween is what? It's wrath. So
Okay.
scaring and hurting people for fun. With masks, it's wrath.
Oh.
The sin of pride.
Okay, what's that? Oh,
Nah, we're not even gonna say that.
There's a really famous mystery called the Dyatlov Pass. It's about these 9 really experienced hikers in the 50s. They set off on this journey and they reached the first checkpoint, but they didn't make it to the second checkpoint. And there was a big search that goes out to make sure they're okay. The army gets involved and they go and follow the route to find the hikers. And they come across these prints in the snow that led down the mountain. And some of the prints were bare feet, some had 1 shoe and 1 barefoot. And it's all 9 of the hikers. And they find 3 of the hikers and they're all deceased. And there's one who's naked. There's one who's up in one of the trees. And there's these deep gouges on the tree as if some animal had been scratching at this tree. There's more footprints that lead away from those 3. And the footprints lead where the other 6 hikers were. And they're all deceased as well. And the women were wearing men's clothing and vice versa. Some of their clothes had trace levels of radiation. And some of them had parts of their face removed, it looked like. Lips, nose, ears. It almost looked like surgical precision removal. There was a person in there who their chest had basically been caved in, but there's no sign of anything that could have done this damage. And suddenly the Soviet government says, we're going to shut this investigation down. All we know is that the 9 hikers who died from an unknown, unnatural force. Sealed.